The financial views and opinions expressed by the host and guests on this program do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of 1077 The Bronx, Rider University, or Certified Wealth Management and Investment. The material discussed is not designed to provide the listeners with individual financial, legal, or tax advice.
Show me the money!
Where's my money, man?
Here comes the money!
Here we go.
It's time to grow your bank as 1077 The Bronx presents Master Your Finances with Kurtis Baker, a certified financial planner professional with certified wealth management and investment. Kurt and his team of financial guests will help you turn those singles into seas of green and plan your financial future accordingly. Now here's your money managing host for the hour, Kurtis Baker.
Do you know how to generate online leads on your own? Do you know how to keep your client acquisition process under control by implementing cutting-edge strategies? Royce Brook Media CEO Matt Montellione specializes in B2B lead generation via multi-channel outreach. His company also offers marketing training to B2B companies interested in bringing the same systems of predictable lead generation in-house. He will walk you through the process of generating high-quality B2B leads using a step-by-step blueprint, as well as a sensation of having leads flowing into your business. That sounds awesome. Now, I don't know about other business owners, but I know in most businesses, I know in our business, it's nice to have constant leads flowing in from some place or other, right? So everybody gets them differently, and I'm just curious. There's a lot going on there because I know nowadays, when I first started off in business, you know, you'd stuck something in the mail and you mailed it off and you hope somebody like respond and you get that 1% to 2%. You were like thrilled somebody like picked up the phone and called you. Nowadays, it's very different. So I'm very excited about learning about that. But I guess let's start just a little bit with your background. Like, how did you start in this process of starting, you know, Royce Brook Media, and like, why are you interested in this whole area, frankly?
Yeah, that's a great question. It started quite a long time ago. I started the company a decade ago, believe it or not.
Wow.
And it was the traditional entrepreneurial story. I started it in my mom's basement. My employee compensation package was my mom's chicken parm. That was about the best I could do. And I really decided, I think, around age 16 that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I'll never forget this experience. I got a job for this guy for the summer washing windows. And the first day on the job, you know, we busted our butts. We were washing this, like, what it looked like a mansion at the time, you know, washing these windows and, like I said, really working hard. And at the end, I remember him looking at the wife and asking, hey, it's $1,100. Do you want to pay cash or check? And she gave him cash. And then he peeled off four $20 bills and handed it to me for my day of work. And I just realized, I'm like, this guy just made $1,000. And I made $80. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I need to be that guy.
You'd rather be the 1,000 than the 80?
Yeah, I mean,
gee, I don't understand
guessed?
that. That's just very strange to me.
And
okay.
I actually never went to work for the guy again. I was like, okay, I figured this out. No, I'm kidding. But I really was like, it was a tough job, and it made me realize early on that if you could have a team of people, or a person or a team of people all putting labor in together, you know, you can actually make a business out of it. So that was probably when I decided I was going to be an entrepreneur. But after that, I did the traditional path. Like, I went to a college. I went to Rampo College up in North Jersey, had a blast there. And afterwards, I had already had in my mind, I'm like, I am not getting a real job. Like, there is nothing you can do to make me get a real job.
Now you sound like me. I never could work for anybody else.
Yeah, you can't. Right?
It's just very strange. We're an odd breed for sure.
It's in your DNA.
So now you know you have to do it. Now, what brought you to this area? Because, you know, this is pretty specific. I don't know. I mean, who grows up and says, I'm going to go do our marketing, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true.
I don't know. That wasn't on my list of like items.
No, and mine either. It was really like a journey, right, to get to where I am now. And after college, I was fortunate. I got to travel around a little bit with the little bit of money I had. I was always doing like little odd jobs, or making websites for small businesses was how I made a couple bucks. And then I had traveled around. I won't bore you with the story. I was living in India for a bit at like a temple in the middle of the woods, which was wild.
Gandhi?
Yeah. Not quite yet. No, nowhere near that. But it was a blast. And when I came back, I had like a couple $100 to my name. And I was like, okay, how do I make money? What skill set do I have? And I knew how to make websites. So I said, all right, this is a thing that a lot of small businesses need. And I remember I was ordering pizza one day, or trying to, online. It didn't even exist really back then, or it was very rare. Couldn't find the site, couldn't find anything. The menu like wouldn't open, so you couldn't even see what was on there. So when I went to pick up my pizza, I pitched the guy. I was like, hey, do you need a website? It's really hard to use your website. are you interested in having me make you one? And I'll do it for cheap. I'll do it for $500. And the guy, oddly enough, said yes, or he said come back Tuesday, and then I did the pitch.
I'll give you a
and he
couple
said-
pizzas.
Yeah,
I'll give you a few pizza
I
pies,
did,
man.
I did a lot of bartering back in the day. I was eating free pizza
There you
at
go.
other restaurants left and right. And then I said, all right, this is a business. I'm going to go door to door and try to sell websites for $500 a piece. And then I started expanding into like social media packages and expanding from there. And then I really got passionate about sort of the lead gen side of things, and specifically in the B2B space, as weird as that is. But the reason it transformed to answer your question, is I realized pretty early on, walking door to door was not a scalable model. Like there was no way for me to.
We got to buy a lot of tennis shoes if you're going to do that one.
Exactly. I'm going to have knee problems pretty quickly. And going out in the rain, the sleet, and the snow, and the hail isn't exactly fun. I know the mailman, that's sort of their motto,
Right.
but that wasn't
Yep.
really my motto.
They have nice trucks now, though.
Yeah, exactly. They could just ride around.
So
So I said, I need to figure out a way to generate leads. Like no
Okay.
matter what, I'm going to figure this
they
out.
have to find the website, right?
They got to find the website. People
That's
think you put up a website and you're making
They
$1
will
million.
come? Not necessarily.
No, if you build it, they will not come.
Right,
If you build
okay.
it and advertise it, they will come. So I figured that was I had to spend all my time, energy, and money figuring out how to do that. And it took me about a year of investing in like education programs,
Okay.
coaching, consulting, spent every little bit of profit I had, and finally landed on something. And it took us from selling, by the time we figured it out, within 1 year, we went from selling websites from about $1,000 to about $300,000. So it completely transformed the business.
Okay.
And I was able to get in front of much bigger companies with actual budgets. You work with these small sort of mom and pops, and hey, listen, there's nothing wrong with that, but you pitch them a marketing package, it's coming directly out of their pocket.
Right.
It's like $200 a month or $500 a month or $1,000 a month less than they have to spend on their own personal
Right.
expenses. But at a bigger company, they have a budget. So it's not coming out of their pocket. And we just needed to get a small chunk of that budget, and we were happy with that.
Well, that's awesome. So that's literally how you got it. I'm going to ask about the B2B, but it sounds to me like the B2B is because that's where the larger dollars are. If you get in the door. So I have to ask you this question, because I'm sure you're not the only one to knock on a Fortune 500 company's door and say, "Gee, I'd like to run your website," and they're going to be like, "Exactly. What were you doing? You made the pizza website, and now you're going to do our entire site for $300,000." I'm just curious how you went from one area up. I mean, 1,000 to 300. That's a huge.
It's a big jump. And what I did was I paid people that were way smarter than me to execute the work.
Okay.
Right. So like the development of the projects, or $300,000 website is obviously way different than a standard $1,000 website.
Right.
Now the minimum's probably much higher than that. So I started hiring developers and designers and people that had years and years of experience and skill set. And I knew obviously what needed to be done and the requirements of the project. And I would basically pay people, my employees and then subcontractors, to do the
Okay.
work. That was kind of the key. I was like, I gotta get people smarter than me. I only know a little bit. I know.
No, and that part's great. I guess my question was, how did you talk to the corporation? Because corporations can be very difficult to talk to. They have a very rigid method, and they usually take you through a process.
Sure.
It's not just, okay, you walk in their front door like, okay, I like you, we're going to sign you up.
That's a good point.
I mean, you have committees, you have people. I mean, when you spend $300,000, it's usually not just one signature.
That's a great point. So it definitely is. It's not an easy process to get from there to there, but I really found a great niche, and like companies that are doing $5 million to, well, now it's bigger, but at the time $5 to $50 million a year in revenue. So nowhere near Fortune 500, right? That's peanuts
okay.
to them.
Okay.
But they have money to spend typically on marketing packages. And to be clear, it wasn't like that was sort of an outlier. We were really focused on selling marketing packages. The
Okay.
reason being, the problem with the website business and the reason we don't do websites anymore is it's a one and done.
Right.
You literally do the project, you hand it over to their team typically, and it's over. Mm-hmm. Right. Or you're doing like advanced security, and like that wasn't our skill set, where you're doing like these support packages.
So they have recurring income and recurring services.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we wanted
Got
to
it.
sell more of the marketing side of things, where I'm like, why are people making the website? You start to boil it down. They're making the website because they want more business. Well, if we could help them get more business, forget about the site, through other means, for example, LinkedIn and email, which is kind of our specialty, that's what they want to pay for. Like they want to see an ROI, right? A return on their investment. And if we can prove that we can deliver that for them, they're going to be much more willing to sign on. And it's not going to be a big chunk up front. It might be $5,000 or $10,000 a month for 6
Right.
months to a year. So it's not a huge amount of money, but you get enough of those contracts and it really adds up.
Right. Okay. All right. That explains that. Okay. So now you got it up and running. So now what are some of the things, I think you just said it a little bit. So what are some of the basic marketing things we should be doing to get our website out there? And then I guess the next part of that would be like, what should we do to get it implemented?
Yeah, that's
There's got to be steps, right?
Yep. No, that's a great question. So There's a couple different things for the website. Again, we kind of specialize in things off the website now, but I'll give you the whole rundown. So the website in and of itself, it needs to be found by people, right? It's not going to be by default. And there's basically two ways that you're found organically, which is going to be typically Google or a search engine or some type of content marketing, an article, a blog, all these things that we consume on a daily basis, or paid advertising, right? And paid advertising is Google pay-per-click ads, Facebook, Instagram, what have you. So it's like, how do you get eyeballs onto what you offer? But more importantly, how does what you offer solve a problem for the client? Just being out there and saying, right, I fix cars, or we'll give you a new roof, like that's not enough anymore.
You have
Like,
to, all right, you got to
right?
have to address their pain points. So when they
Correct.
come, they go, yeah, that's exactly what's bothering me. And you have a solution for me.
You need
You get that off my plate.
Yep,
Love you.
You need an offer. We call them like offers. Like people don't realize everything you're putting out there is your offer, but
Right.
people see their offer more as a commodity. Like I sell this, I sell a roof. Like how could my offer be any different? But I'll give you a great example. A couple years ago, I had a couple rental properties, and unfortunately, you get the call in the middle of the night that literally no landlord wants to get, which is the hot water heater has exploded.
Yeah, there's
So-
water everywhere.
There's water everywhere. I'm like, this is great. Well, I'm so glad I got into this.
Yep.
So I had 3 different companies come out, to give me quotes after it got cleaned up, and one of them was the cheapest. The next person, and they were like, yeah, we put in the hot water heater. What do you want? That's what it is. The next person was a little bit more expensive, but they had an offer. Their offer was, it's a 10-year warranty on the heat exchanger, 20-year on this other thing that I had never even heard of. We also come out and give you bi-yearly service for free for the first 3 years. So they had packaged an offer rather than just a commodity. And the third person was more expensive than that guy, and they didn't have any of these bells and whistles. So because it had an offer rather than just a commodity, it had higher perceived value.
Right.
And I ended up going with that person. I was really happy with it.
Oh, that is really awesome. We went through our first segment pretty quick. We're going to take a very quick break here. We'll be right back. You're listening to Master Your Finances.
Right, whoop it out. Loads of money.
Yeah, you've got loads of money, but it's all about how you manage it. Let's get back to learning how to grow your green with Kurt Baker of Certified Wealth Management and Investment, only on Master Your Finances.
Welcome back. I'm here with Matt Montellione, and we are talking about strategies for, I guess, bringing clients. If they build it, they will not come, as we said, so to speak. So the idea is now you need to really focus on bringing people to it. And I guess in the past you would kind of push stuff out and just inundate people with information, right? I guess that now the opposite is true, where it's almost like you have to lure them in, right? So you have to say, hey, and that's probably a bad word, but what you want to do is put out things that people are actually looking for. And I refer that to, is in my business, kind of like call their pain points. Like what's really bothering people? What keeps them up at night? What concerns do they have? And now I want to make sure people understand that that is exactly the type of thing I do, is address those concerns so that your pain point goes away and then things are much better. Every business is different. So how do you go through the process of deciding, okay, one, you have to know your client, basically. How do you figure out their pain point? And then now how do you address it so you actually get people to come in to the website or wherever, and whether it's email or LinkedIn or whatever, in that process? Can you walk us kind of through that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So like, I'm mostly talking about B2B companies, so businesses that sell
Right.
to other businesses. But this applies just in the example I just gave to consumers as well, right? Like creating this offer concept. And it's really interesting, but there's a guy named Alex Hormozy who came up with this thing called the value equation. And I'm sure somebody else came up with it before
Okay.
that. But it's really, really interesting. It's worth Googling. And really what you're looking for is to increase the dream outcome, what the dream outcome looks like for the client, and be able to verbalize that and have them understand it, and increase their perceived likelihood of achievement. So meaning like if you believe you're going to buy a new roof, I'll use a consumer example, like how the dream outcome is I have a beautiful new roof that never leaks and lasts me 50 years, whatever that
Right.
might be. And the perceived likelihood of achievement is like, yeah, we've done this a million times and it's going to be done on Thursday. Like it's
Right.
done. So like the likelihood of achievement is very, very high versus if you were selling someone how to do your own roof, like a course on that, the
Yeah.
likelihood of achievement would be very low because I
Yeah.
don't believe I can actually obtain that, right?
Yeah, no thank you.
Yeah, and that's why you see why the value of things costs so different. I'll give you another example. How about working out like a diet plan, a personal trainer versus liposuction? One costs $100 a month, or a gym plan, one costs $50,000. And it follows sort of this value equation, which is the dream outcome's the same. I'm going to be fit,
Right.
I'm going to be skinny, I'm going to look good. But the perceived likelihood of achievement is I have to like eat right. I have to do all this. I'm never going to stick to the diet versus like, yeah, they're going to put me under the knife. I'm going to wake up 50 pounds lighter. And it comes over the things you want to also read. So that's the things you want to increase. And here's the example for decreasing: time delay and effort and sacrifice. So this is still the perfect example. The time delay on the liposuction is literally 1 day. I mean, you're going to recover and whatnot. And the effort and sacrifice is I'm just not going to feel good. Versus the time delay, if I want to work out and eat right, is going to be months, if not years, till I actually look good. And the effort and sacrifice is I feel, whether this is true or not, I'm never going to eat something I like. I'm going to hate it. I'm never going to be able to eat out again. I can't drink with my friends, right? So you start to see why you can sell something for so much more when it follows like these principles of the value equation, because it's more valuable to the prospect, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense to me. So that's a B2C or consumer. So what kind of things do you see come up in B2B? I guess if I'm a manufacturer, I mean, I need, parts. So, I mean, I don't do a lot of B2B, so I don't know. I'm just curious about how does that, because you're solving somebody's concern. I guess I purchase products, so I know that side of it, right? When somebody flags me, I go, yeah, you're getting this off my plate, so I don't have to deal with this anymore. Now I can focus on my clients instead of focusing on this administrative end, right? That's the big thing we deal with, like, get as much of the admin stuff. You need it done right, but you don't want to spend a lot of time on it. So you're willing to pay to have that done quicker and easier.
Yep, exactly. It's usually some type of speed or something you can't do yourself. So in that example, it's like, okay, I have a part I need to manufacture. How do I do it? The dream outcome is the part comes out every time perfectly. I never have to think about it. There's not any discrepancies or deficiencies in the parts. And I'm going to work with a company that has a really good track record that I know can actually produce it. That increases my likelihood that it's going to actually happen. And I need it to happen in under a month, right? So you start to see where all these things come into play, where someone in a B2B space can position their offer and add other pieces of perceived value to the client that might not really cost them anything, that actually have a lot of perceived value to the client. Like someone was talking, we work with a lot of logistics companies, companies that help like transport freight and do different types of transportation for goods. And one of the biggest challenges is like visibility. Like, I don't know where my freight is, if the driver's actually coming. So someone's like, oh, I can have like a visibility tool that keeps them up to date.
Little RF chips?
Yeah, in real time.
Yeah. Okay.
Where it is on the ship, when does it get here, when it gets loaded on the truck. They get real-time notifications.
Okay.
So that has a ton of value to the client because their dream outcome is I actually know where my stuff is and when it's going to get there. And I don't have to have any effort and sacrifice because it comes to my phone in real-time updates. So that's going to be infinitely more valuable than someone's like, yeah, don't worry, we got you covered. We'll let you know when it gets here, and you have no idea if it's actually coming or not, or if the driver's actually showing up. So
wow.
You know what I mean? You can see how much more value something like that would have to somebody and why they'd pay more for something like that.
Right. So once we get this value proposition set up, well, I guess we'll use your logistics guy. So now how do you like formulate the actual process to make people be aware of the value proposition that you have, right? So what your unique issue, what you're doing that's different than everything, right?
Yeah, great question. So you're going to typically use something like a funnel, and a funnel can be a million different things. A funnel is a fancy way to say like how do you convert somebody that doesn't know about your product or service into a customer, and there's multiple stages to that. And you can use your website, you can use paid ads, you can use landing pages, but what we specialize in is B2B hyper-personalized outreach. So rather than getting the customers to come to us and hoping the right ones show up, we want to go to them. So we want to actually like do some research, identify who are the people at which companies that we want to do business with, and then formulate a strategy to put our value prop in front of them, right? To actually be like, hey, here's what it is, here's what we have, here's the challenges that you're probably experiencing, and here's how we can solve them. And we mostly focus on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn's like the world's most up-to-date Rolodex, right? You get a new job,
huge.
You update it instantly.
Yep.
So LinkedIn is a really good tool for connecting with people and adding value there. And then, honestly, cold email. As crazy as it sounds.
Yeah, email for at least our bit, that works fantastically. As long as the content is useful, right? You don't want to spam people. It's got to be useful and valuable to the people you're sending it to. And I guess that's where you get into the messaging, right? You want to explain very concisely what's going on. And
great copy, like good copy, like the reader can understand.
Okay.
But great copy, the reader feels understood. If that makes sense. So like really good copy. When you read an ad or something, you're like, I understand this. It's like, this is me. They're speaking directly to me.
Right.
That's great copy, and that's a great ad, and that's what gets people to click. And it's all numbers at the end of the day, which is kind of boring. We won't go through them here, but it's like what percentage of people see my ad that actually like it. Like you can test and measure all that stuff. So you need a really good game plan, and I really believe companies need some type of digital strategy right? The old days of like, even what I did 10 years ago, like walking around door to door. Not that I can't work. I have kids show up in my neighborhood trying to pitch me pest control or whatever.
Right.
I understand that. You got a captive audience, but most things aren't going to work that way.
Right.
Like the concept is like leverage. Like I can spend X amount of dollars on an ad. The amount you'd pay that kid to walk around the neighborhood all day, you could spend that on Facebook or Instagram and reach 1,000 times as many people.
Right. It's more targeted. I guess that's the point. Is I like where you walk through, where you do the research for the people. So what kind of research goes into that? So you want to identify, I guess, who the decision makers might be at the company. And once you identify the decision makers, now you have to formulate how are you going to speak to those people in a way that says, yeah, that's exactly what we need.
Exactly right.
So how do you kind of walk through that part of it?
Yeah, so we help clients, first of all, like what's the low-hanging fruit and who can they help the most? So if you're a logistics company, for another example, like we're talking about, are you really good? Like, oh, we can help anybody. But it's like, yeah, but your best clients are probably a certain niche. Maybe
Right.
they're apparel companies. Maybe you're really good at vitamin companies. Like maybe you have something that other people don't have, or you have a lot of case studies to show why you're great in a particular niche. So that's the first thing, is pick a couple niches that you're really good at. They say the riches are in the niches, and I truly
Right.
believe that's true.
Oh, very much so.
And then you start to be able to identify competing companies or similar companies. And then LinkedIn will literally tell you, right? You just log on and you're like, oh, I need to speak with the director of purchasing.
Right.
It's, Jane Smith. Here she is.
Now they must get, you just say the director of purchasing. If I'm the director of purchasing at a large company, I probably get more than one in-mail, right?
Definitely.
During my year.
Yep.
So how do I like stand out from like all the other ones that they are probably getting that they're getting?
Yep.
And they're like frustrated because they're probably click. Let's get rid of all these things. They're plugging up my mailbox.
It is a numbers game at the end of the day.
Okay.
And a timing game. So you're looking for a 2% sort of booked meeting
Okay.
rate. You're not going to get much beyond that. But the way you do it is hyper-personalization. So rather than just spam out a bunch of messages,
Right.
taking some time, especially these are high-value accounts. If the account's worth $500 to you, this strategy doesn't work. But a big company like we're talking about, a B2B engagement, their
Okay.
clients can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. So taking the time out of your day to research this person, and then I call it building a bridge. So like, how do you build a bridge to this person? It's usually a compliment, right? Talking about like something they posted, actually a valuable insight, like reading something they posted or watching a video they posted and putting a valuable insight, a takeaway that you got from it. That's a really good way to like build a bridge between you and them. So they see that you spent the time, that this wasn't automated, that you went out of your way.
So this is a little bit of good old-fashioned networking, but you're just doing it electronically.
Exactly right.
Where
And
you get to know the person a little bit before you sell them, quote unquote, or you provide the proposition to them. I mean, and I think that's key to any relationship. I mean, who just walks? I mean, we talk about this as a chamber all the time. People walk in, they try to sell. I'm like, I don't know who you are.
Right.
And so first you have to like get at least some type of relationship, and then you can start discussing maybe what you do and how you can help somebody.
You hit the nail on the head. And then like building rapport is big, and that's one way you build rapport. And the second way is basically video. You can send little video clips to these people, introducing yourself, again, commenting on something specific. Like LinkedIn literally has a button inside of there that when you're connected, you can send a little video message from your phone. I mean, that goes such a long way. Like, who's going to do something like that?
Right.
Right? It's a game changer.
No, that's definitely awesome. We're going to take another quick break. You're listening to Master Your Finances. We'll be right back.
We're not just doing this for money. We're doing it for a shitload of money.
If you want to learn how to make and manage that kind of money, turn the volume up as we get back to Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker of Certified Wealth Management and Investment.
Welcome back. I'm here with Matt Montellione, and we're talking about, we're talking about specifically LinkedIn at the moment, and the use of video, which is actually something that very recently has been the conversations I'm having with some of my peers in a mastermind group, and we've been talking about this and how really should be using it more, right? Like as an example right now is that like the market is fluctuating and things like that. If you can't actually reach somebody for whatever reason, it would be nice in addition to emails and phone calls, maybe send a little quick video and kind of tell them, because some people are very busy and they don't have time to respond. So it'd be kind of nice to personalize and make it a little more one-on-one as much as you can without being able to reach the other person. But my question to you would be, when I'm going on LinkedIn and I'm going to approach somebody with a video, at least me personally, I'm okay with like sending messages. I can think about it and write it. But when you're doing a video, how do you set up the messaging, I guess, that's appropriate, not too much, not too little, like timing, what do you say, and how do you say it? How's that?
Yeah, that's a great way to sort of tee it up. And the who, what, why script is something that we believe in and works pretty well. Like who you are, what are you about, and why you're contacting them or why you can help them is more important, right? So it's quick, it's to the point, and if you can do a personalized video, which is great, you can mention something again, like we talked about building a bridge. I just listened to your podcast. Here's something that I found extremely valuable. Appreciate you putting that out there. And I wanted to reach out to you because, and then you can go in to explain how you feel you can help them, the challenges they might be facing, and how you help solve them. So still building the bridge up front, right? Because that goes a long way, and you're not just somebody blasting out a million of these. That's going to take you way further than anything else. And people are going to say, is this a manual process? Right? That's obviously a very manual process. There are some systems and ways to automate some of it. But yeah, it is a manual process to a degree. But if you have an ideal client that's worth, again, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars a year,
Right.
how valuable is one opportunity? It's quite valuable.
Right.
So it's worth doing the extra time, energy, and effort.
Okay, so how? And then I guess my next question would be: okay, once you get this set up and you say, okay, I'm not going to start using this, just like with the everything else. So what? How often would you do something like because as you know, the funnel you're saying maybe a 2% response. That means 98% didn't respond, right?
Yep.
But there's still high value theoretically here
Sure.
as far as your process goes. So when do I go back to them? Like, I guess the ones that respond, you're obviously going to go back right away. But the other ones that are out there, what's the frequency? I mean, how do you set up a system to because you have to set up a system, right, to follow up through this process?
Kind of like a CRM, right? Like you're managing the relationship of each of these individual prospects. And there's a million CRMs out there that'll help you manage this, and some will even sync up to LinkedIn so you can keep track of it. I like to hit people like once a week for 4 weeks. And if they don't respond at that point, then essentially you're going to recycle them a few months later, because it might not be that they're not interested. They're just not interested right now.
It might be big, like an accountant's not going to talk to you in April.
That's for sure. Right? That's a bad time to target an accountant.
That's like, leave me alone.
Yeah, even through October 15th, right? We're on
Well,
extension.
that's the one,
So yeah,
the one that just finished. Yeah,
exactly.
No, I believe you. I know a lot of accountants. Yeah, so absolutely. You're right. So 4 weeks and then wait several months and then come back.
Correct.
Okay, so it's kind of like doing almost like the regular advertise on TV where they'll hit you during a season and they forget about you, and then they come back.
And they come back.
And then they come back, and because you still kind of remember them. So at least they'll remember. So when you come back again, now they're going to have at least some memory of this person. And to me, that actually sounds pretty good, because if you're talking to somebody and you did a little bit of a follow-up and then you took a break, that means you're not overbearing, so to speak, because sometimes they don't want a high pressure salesman at the other end. They literally want somebody that's going to solve a problem for them. And if you come across as being trying to sell something instead of serve them, then that's not the way you want to come off, for sure.
You're exactly right, and that kind of brings me to a little bit of a story and a point about switching gears to your website. Most people's website is that pushy salesperson.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because 90% of the calls to action on someone's website are, contact us today or book a call.
Right.
Right. That's like the equivalent of walking up to somebody you just met that you think's attractive and being like, will you marry me? It's like, it's way over the top, right? You can't do that. No one in their right mind would say yes. So like, if you imagine your customers as fish and you're like a fishing vessel out there, let's pretend fishing has never been invented. You're out in the ocean, the open ocean, and you're looking around and you have two schools of thought. It's like, there's fish right here. What do we do? Well, someone says, why don't we put some bait on a hook, throw it in there, and see if they'll bite it, like the things they want to eat. Let's put that in there.
Right.
And some other guy's like, absolutely not. I can see them. I'm going to jump in with my bare hands and try to grab them. And like, we know fishing exists, so we know which one's better. But most people's site is doing that. So instead, put something that's valuable on your site that you can exchange for their email address. Right? This is a tried and true tactic, but nobody does it because most people think that means sign up for my newsletter. Nobody wants another newsletter, right? Nobody cares about a newsletter. It's what's in it for me. So we do one that's like download our cold email playbook right on our website. Download our cold email playbook, which will give you the step-by-step methodology for generating 10 new leads a month.
Right.
That's something someone might trade their email for. If I put sign up for my newsletter, I'll get 0 people to put in. So you can always try to think of something, whether it's a guide or a video series or something that helps them solve their problem for free, some type of digital asset they can put on your website and exchange for free for their email address. You've seen it done a million times. There's companies that are super good at it. Most B2C companies realize this because, like, get 10% off. Like, you've gone to every big company's site on earth. Your first order is 10% off. Give us your email.
Almost every site you go to now has some kind of offer when you first come to the website.
And I'm glad you said offer, because it's an offer, and that's what their offer is. Get 10% off. Well, if I look at the effort and sacrifice, it's nothing. I'm just going to put in my email address. I'm going to get 10% off my order.
Right.
And now they're going to hit me with follow-up nurture emails, right, about sales, about new products.
And you kind of know that because you're not going to necessarily do that. If you're not interested in what they're selling, you're not going to sign up regardless. But if you have some interest, that's going to kind of put you over and say, oh, that's great. if I get 20% off on a new pair of shoes that I was going to probably buy anyway, cool. I just may not buy it today, but now they're going to follow up me. So if I don't buy this stuff today, it'll remind me, oh, by the way, I need a new pair of shoes. That's true. I guess I better go do that, right?
You're 100% right. And that's one of the easiest, the most low-hanging fruit is to get people on your list, like, which is doing what I said, something of perceived value for their email address. And then not once a month, not quarterly, twice a week.
Okay.
Emails to your list to nurture them so they see your name or your company name. And you're not just pitching them. It's like 10% maybe pitch, 90% value. So it's all things that can help them, stories, things about their industry, news, interesting things. And you hit them with that and nurture them for long enough, you're going to hit them at the right place at the right time when they're ready to take action, whether that's a new roof, whether that, whatever that is. You're going to be the go-to and the authority in their mind because you've been sending out all this valuable content for 6 months. I mean, we literally just had someone reach back out to us that's been on our list for like 2 years.
Okay.
Right? And then we signed a contract with them the other day. So it's like, what are you going to do? Have a sales rep remember to follow up with this person? Like, that's almost impossible.
Right.
So having a regular nurture sequence, and it's hard and it's easy because you got to actually write this stuff and write valuable stuff.
That's the next part I was going to ask you about. This is a lot. This is a decent amount of content. Now, if I'm a business owner, I know the bigger companies probably have their own people or they at least can outsource. So how do you put together this kind of a campaign? Because this is something that it sounds to me like, one, you need to set up, you need to have enough content, enough pieces, right? You can't have one or two. You probably have to have 5 or 10 or maybe more. I don't know. I mean, you tell me. And then you probably have to update it. I mean, you can't just set it and forget it because the content may change or it may not be appropriate anymore based on what you did a year ago, may be totally wrong.
Yep, well, you're right. One of the easiest ways is just to like follow current events.
Okay.
So let's say it's February 8th or whenever the Super Bowl was, like what the Super Bowl means for your logistics company, or like just silly stuff. The reason people need a headline that's catchy, you want it to invoke curiosity because that's the only thing as humans that we like pay attention to, and something novel. So something that like almost creates that cognitive dissonance in your mind, and you're like, what's going on here? And you'll realize it now that hopefully that I'm saying this. Every single ad you click on, every single thing isn't going to say, study shows that men buy this product 80% more than women. It's going to say, who buys this product more, men or women? ? And that's the headline.
It's always a question. Yeah,
that's the headline because that makes you.
Sometimes
click.
It's called clickbait.
Yeah,
but there's nothing on the back end. Sometimes you click through, you're like, didn't even answer the question.
Yeah, what is on here?
You
get in trouble with some of that stuff, but the rest of it, every good ad, everything you click on Facebook and Instagram, every news article you read on Google News or Apple News is written a certain way, and it's to invoke curiosity. They want to propose a question, invoke curiosity, and try to get you to click so you can consume the content and figure out. Your brain doesn't like those open loops, those mysteries.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so they'll do a headline where they say such and such is happening on, and then you're like, on what? And, I got to click to find the rest of the article.
Right. Right. And
like, wait a minute.
You can go with just current events, current phenomenon, TV shows, things that are going on in the news. Like,
so if you're setting this up, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but if you're setting this up, like you're doing current events, so, okay, if I'm going to do the Super Bowl and I'm in February, right? But people are going on every day. Right, so am I doing this by the month? Am I doing this by?
You're doing this in real time, like
real time.
Real time.
I'm changing my entire list of things I'm sending to people.
You're literally just creating a single email twice a week, right? Rather than a cadence. I mean, you can have those autoresponders that automatically do like specific updates, quarterly updates, all that fun stuff. But in the meantime, you're literally writing 2 new emails a week.
Oh, so you're literally saying write emails twice a week that are very specific, and then put that on the list. So this is definitely work. So you got to set aside time to make sure you do this and do it correctly. Okay.
Yeah, but honestly, if you get good, once you get good at this, it's going to take you no more than an hour a week to write 2 emails.
Okay.
Right, and you can be a story about something that happened in your life and how it relates to their type of business, because usually people on your list have similar needs, wants, desires. So you can really do some cool stuff around what's happening. If it's something financial about like what the government speech just meant, what Joe Biden's speech means for your 401k. Like that'll get a zillion clicks, right? Because people like are paranoid. They want to know what's going on.
Well,
what is the
things,
speech?
Things are always happening, right? So especially with the political season. So you're, So the other quick question before we break is like, are there certain days of the week that are best to send these out? Because I hear all kinds of comments about don't send it out on this day. Do send it on. What are your thoughts about that?
There's a lot of data that shows like Wednesday, Thursday, sometimes Sunday. The real answer is you just have to test it for your audience. Like try different days and just look at the data, right? The data doesn't lie. It'll tell you how
So
much.
just keep modifying. So I would assume you spread them like 3 days apart. So they're right. So if you do a Monday, you do a Thursday, and you do a Tuesday, you do a Friday. Just keep messing around with it till you figure out those 2 days that kind of work.
Right. The data will show you in your email sender, like, hey, you got a 20%
Follow
open
the
rate.
data.
Follow the data.
Awesome.
It doesn't lie.
All right, we're going to take another quick break. You're listening to Master Your
Do
Finances.
you want to prevent this from happening to you?
And it's gone. It's all gone.
Listen closely as we now return to Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker of Certified Wealth Management and Investment.
Welcome back. We're listening to Master Your Finances. I am here with Matt Montellione, and we're talking about different ways to market, some specifics as far as how to use email. Email is still a great way to connect with people as long as you do it correctly. We have to emphasize that. And that's the problem, is most people are not doing it correctly. And LinkedIn, I think, is a hugely underutilized platform that could be extremely valuable, again, if used correctly. And ultimately, you want to get this to a person-to-person at some point, because you have to connect like a real person, and that's when you actually can do any kind of connection as far as a relationship goes. So I guess we'll back up just a little bit, and then these are two key components, but of a larger puzzle, which is really just, I guess, marketing in general. So how do you define marketing, and what are your views on just the entire concept of that? Because I know when we have a cycle in the market itself, sometimes the traditional thing is, well, when things get bad, we cut the marketing budget, and when things are good, we increase the marketing budget, which honestly is usually the opposite of what you should be doing, because when things are
100%.
good, you're probably going to get money anyway. When things are bad, you probably should be going in. So what are your thoughts about how to budget and how to actually do marketing in general?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that. Most people constrict in bad times and cut marketing first. And part of the reason, I think, is this sort of older school mentality when you couldn't actually attribute most of the advertising you're doing into sales. Like
Right.
you ran commercials, you have a billboard. Like, how could you possibly attribute sales to a billboard? Like, yeah, maybe if the person's like, oh, ask them if they saw the billboard. Like, it's almost impossible to attribute. But through modern marketing, you can attribute most things through tracking. There's
Right.
tracking pixels. There's the Facebook pixel that Google has tracking as well. So you can actually know that I spent $5 in ads and I produced a lead. Now, that's not a realistic number typically, but
Right.
depending on the size of your business. But you can start to see, like, wait a minute, I can have an understanding of this data, and this data is how some of these companies that you've heard about have gone from zero to hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And the reason is because they have such a good grasp on their data. They understand you. If everybody watched Shark Tank, it's like, how much does it cost you to acquire a customer? Like,
Right.
when you don't
They
know
talk
that
about it all the
number,
time. They talk about it all the time. You're done.
you're done. Like, walk out of the tank.
Yep.
You're
Every
kicked
time.
out.
Every time.
And the reason they want to understand that is because if you can actually profit on the front end of acquiring a customer, meaning even if you acquire the customer for free, meaning you break even, you can just acquire unlimited customers because you're
Right.
going to get the exact amount of money back the
Right.
next day.
Right.
It's really easy in like e-commerce to attribute because it's like, okay, I spent money on Facebook ads. I had 700 people come to the site. 48 of them bought. It was $600 worth of stuff, and I had spent $300 on ads. My profit margin's 50%. It's really easy to do math in that regard. In the B2B world, it's much harder. 'Cause
Okay.
It's like, okay, I had this many leads, but my sales cycle is 8 months long, so I have to actually track how long it takes. So it's much more difficult to spend unlimited money on ads in B2B because you have a budget and you have to be able to recoup your money, which takes months oftentimes, if not years. But in some of these businesses, especially transactional businesses, I recommend that you have no marketing budget,
Okay.
an unlimited marketing budget if it's profitable.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is like if you know for sure that you spend $20 on ads and you get $100 worth of profit
Right.
on your e-commerce site, why would you have a marketing budget of $1,000 a month? You literally are just like cutting yourself at the knees.
So
Like,
just
okay.
keep stepping it up.
Yeah,
right,
like,
right.
and
Yeah.
you don't jump up to like, oh, perfect, I'm going to spend $1 million this month.
Well, you
like
still need a margin of, you still need a profit margin.
Right, you move it up slowly, but
Right,
the
right.
ability for companies now to spend money on ads, and ads are just like leverage. Like I started to study this a lot, and it's really an interesting concept. Like leverage is everything to a business. You can leverage labor, meaning people can do work. Like you're only one person
Right.
at
Like-
the top, right?
Like when you're fixing up a house or whatever, right?
Yeah, right. You need people to do it. You need people to do work.
Right.
But now you have the leverage of paid media, which is unlimited leverage, where if I want to have these one-to-one conversations, which I think is awesome in B2B and super required, but there's another side of the coin, which is also really important, especially for consumer brands, where I can pay Zuckerberg or the guys at Google money so that they show my ad, they show my content, they show my everything about me and my value prop, and I can leverage that so I can get in front of way more people than I ever could before. Like before, advertising was really just for super big companies.
Right.
Like what would I do? Get a radio commercial or a TV ad or a billboard. All that was super expensive. A magazine, that was reserved for
and
super
generally
big
harder
companies.
to track too.
Harder to track and for big companies.
Right.
But now, like, you can create an ad on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Google for pretty inexpensive. Some industries are obviously more than others.
Right.
And you can actually start to track your results, and all of a sudden you can have a consistent customer acquisition strategy, because that's one of the hardest things. Like, people don't know where their next customer is coming from, and I used to be in that boat too.
Right.
Right. Like, you didn't know. But once you have a predictable system where it's like, I know I'm going to get to about 20 leads a month from this strategy, we're going to convert 10% of them into customers, an average customer is worth this much. You start to break down the math and you realize the type of business you can build when you understand some of that data, if that makes sense.
Oh, it definitely makes sense. So, wow. Yeah. So, how do you figure? I mean, you just talked about some of the paid advertising. One of the things that always comes up for me, if we talk about that a little bit, is like, how do you figure out what are the best like keywords or like phrases to use in your business? Because sometimes you're like, oh, well, that's a popular word, but it's really, really expensive. And this is maybe not as popular, but I can do more. And so, I guess that's through the testing aspect. So, how do you try to like figure out what's actually working for you, and how often you go back in and kind of make adjustments and things like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's kind of like those two forms of online advertising. One is like intent-based, which is what you're talking about, meaning like I have the need for a plumber. I type in plumbers near me, and probably an immediate need usually if it's a plumbing issue, right? So that is really important and expensive to be at the top, because people are going to pay big bucks because it's immediate need. You're making a split-second decision. There's water coming out of your roof. You don't have time. Right? Where like the other form of advertising, which is really new, and the first time it happened was a TV commercial. I won't get into it too much, but basically you're interrupting someone's day with something based on who you believe they are, like their customer persona. That's like Facebook and Instagram ads, TikTok ads, what have you. They didn't search for something specifically, but you are interrupting them because you believe they are the type of person to buy a BMW. So BMW has an ad.
This sounds like AI stuff to me.
Oh, it all is. It's crazy.
They know more about me than I do.
Yeah, so instead of paying for those expensive keywords, maybe you target everybody who likes BMWs on Facebook and lives in a wealthy zip code. Right? Like, you can do all that crazy targeting on Facebook or Instagram and other platforms. So you interrupt their day, and rather than a little text-based ad, you have a video of a BMW and going fast, or the interior of it and whatnot. And that's why you see all those ads, because they're figuring out who you are as a person, your persona, rather than like what you're typing in. They almost like, and then you ever think like, they're listening to me.
Because it's scary sometimes. They throw things in front of you.
I believe they're listening too, but people say they're not. They have to be, but they say they're not, but they're so good at predicting because they know so much about you, so much data about me and you as people and everyone, that they're putting ads in front of you of things you really would like.
Well, sometimes they put things in front of you that you hadn't even thought of. It's like, wait a minute.
Yep, they're so good at it, but they know your personality.
That's actually pretty interesting. I never thought I would be interested in that.
Yep. They're really good, and I'm a sucker for those ads. Like, I buy all of them pretty much.
You buy all of them?
Oh, my God.
So you're helping with the business model,
I'm like, I love this stuff. Like, I love good ads. Like, I can't help it because I'm just, like, in this world, and I appreciate them a lot.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So the new thing is they're really reading your customer persona. So how do I figure that out for myself? If I'm a business with B2B is your specialty. So how do I figure out the customer persona of that purchasing agent or office director, whatever the case may be? How do I like understand who that person might be? Yeah,
but kind of like survey your existing customers and put that data in there and like, okay, let's look at every customer we have. Is there any trends? Are they all men or all women or all a certain age or all a certain college level, or they all drive certain cars, or they all have 3 kids? Like, you can start to try to put together some of this data and have a pretty good idea, and then when you put your targeting together, you use all of that. Which is why the ads that come to me are different than come to you than different to come to somebody else. Because they're so good at laser targeting who they're going after, especially big companies now. But I think, in all honesty, eyeballs are only going to get more expensive because it's not a problem. The only thing that matters right now is attention. It's like the new it's the new oil. Like, your attention is what's valuable. Your attention is what makes money. Everybody's attention. So if you can get attention for cheap, you can basically outdo your competition because they're not doing it yet. Even the big brands are underspending, I think, and they're all coming around and realizing, can I spend $5 million on a Super Bowl commercial Or for $5 million on paid media, on social media, on Instagram, where everyone spends all their time,
Right.
how many more eyeballs can I reach? How many more conversions can I have?
Right.
So I think they're starting to shift budget there, and it's a bidding system. So as they do, the cost will rise for all of us little guys and girls. So it's really important to get in, I think, now and have a good strategy that works.
So then you can be the one that can actually spend the $5 million.
Right. Yeah, you want to be that person.
So you got to work on that now. Oh, wow. So awesome. So marketing in general. So yeah. So what should we be doing as far as our where should we start?
I think the biggest thing is like marketing education. You want to spend some time, energy, and effort to really understand it. There's a lot of cool courses out there that'll teach you sort of the fundamentals of marketing, getting an understanding, trying to bring it in-house. But if you can't, obviously you can look for a vendor that can help you with some of this stuff.
Right.
But I'm a big believer that a business will only grow to like the skills and character traits of the entrepreneur. So you have to acquire those skills and in-source them inside your business, whether you learn them or a key employee learns them. You have to bring that in-house if you really want to control your own destiny. So people invest in all these things, invest in stocks and brands and crypto, but like the best investments I've ever made in my life are in myself and just learning new skills. Like a skill will pay you forever. Like no one can take it away from you. Like no government can tax it. Like you own that skill, you know how to do it, which is why you see these people that had everything, they lost it all. 3 years later, they have it all back because they have that skill that's going to produce that income and produce the revenue that they need.
Well, that was just awesome. We're getting ready to end the show here. Any last thoughts before we go? It's been awesome, Matt.
No, I hope I provide some value for everybody, and I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Matt. We listened to Matt Montellione with Royce Brook Media, and it's been awesome. I learned a lot today. You're listening to Master Your Finances. Have a wonderful day.
That's all for today's episode of Master Your Finances. Miss Kurt Baker's biggest money managing tip or even a full episode? Head on over to masteryourfinances.us or 1077thebronx.com/masteryourfinances. Look for Master Your Finances on Anchor, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. We'll see you next time only on 1077 The Bronx.